Have you ever heard the expression, absence makes the heart grow fonder? You know, I was really concerned about going from a 6.5-inch iPhone 11 Pro Max to a phone this small with so little features compared to that phone. No more OLED, not even a dual camera, and I'm used to having a triple camera these days, not as great battery life, but once I felt it, and once it was in my hand, and I went back to Touch ID, and I had the home button, and the screen was smaller and everything, I realized I don't like this thing. It's too dang small. Give me chonk phone. I want the big one. Give me the display that is huge as long as it fits in my pocket. Yeah, I don't like even... okay, let's begin. Okay, so before I complain endlessly and needlessly, let me just compliment the back of this phone design, okay? There has never been an iPhone back that looked more clean than this. Okay, I don't care about your iPhone 3GS days or your last gen iPhone SE. Those had glass and aluminum clashing together. They had a giant black plastic bottom of the old iPhone. This has no text on the back. It's literally just logo, camera, mic, and flash. I can't think of a back design that was more simple and more basic than that. So minimalists out there, this gotta be pretty satisfying. In fact, I can't think of many other phone backs that are this good looking. And once we come to the front, that's when things get a little bit more boring. So you've probably heard a lot of YouTubers say, you know what, I kind of miss the home button, or Touch ID is still pretty fast. Well, psoriasis is gone for me now, so I'm able to actually enjoy Touch ID the way it was meant to be. And now that Touch ID actually works reliably for me, I can say Face ID is still better. I'm sorry, it's just the idea that I have to press and hold my finger in a specific way to unlock this phone. It feels so archaic, and I know there's a lot of you out there watching this on phones with home buttons and you're happy with it and you're comfortable with it, but just keep in mind, I have not used an iPhone with a home button since I think early 2018 when I tested out the product red iPhone 8 Plus, which that was coming from using an iPhone 10 for about 3 to 4 months, and then back to the home button, and I realized I liked the plus size and that form factor was good. I just wished I could keep my gestures and I could keep Face ID on that form factor. So I got that later when the XS Max came out. So I really enjoy having gesture control compared to the home button. It feels very backwards and less thought through. In case you didn't know, my SIM card is in this thing. I actually like testing out other iPhones, even if they're worse, just because it's fun to try out different hardware and not have to leave the ecosystem. So if I try out a phone like the SE, I don't get bombarded by Nick and Randy about becoming the green guy. I don't have to miss out on AirDrop and all my continuity features I have within the ecosystem, so it's a lot easier to test out another iPhone than it is an Android phone for my channel, which is why I thought it would be fun to try this out, even if some people were like, oh, Drew's gonna end up liking the SE, and then realize that he actually doesn't mind having bezels and a home button. No, it bothers me. It really does. This thing is too small. The text has to be all crammed in there. It feels like there's just room to breathe on a Super Retina XDR display, and there's like more space between font and stuff, and everything's just condensed down into little tiny text, and the keyboard's so hard to type on, and Discord doesn't show as much stuff, and Twitter's so minimized, and I'm not a minimalist. I'm sorry, people. I want to try this thing out. I'm gonna see if my opinions change over the next couple weeks with me using this thing, but it's definitely not for me. Now, that's not to say this is a bad phone. Hope you guys understand that. This is a great phone, and it's going to be perfect for a lot of people, especially parents and grandparents out there that don't really care to learn new ways of using their phone. They just want the good old home button, and they don't care about bezels, and Touch ID works for them fine. This is going to be a solid phone for a lot of people. My opinion about that hasn't changed, but for me, oh my god, having to press the home button twice every time I want to multitask versus just getting to swipe between the apps quickly from the bottom. And since there's no 3D touch, we don't have that quick app switcher we used to. So this goes back to multitasking like it was on the iPhone 6. And there's been several times I've swiped up to go home, and now it activates Control Center instead of going home. And I just miss gestures. I know there's jailbreak tweaks that let you have gestures on a phone this size, but then that makes the whole bezel thing kind of stupid. So impressed by the price point. The camera performance is great. The speakers on it are really decent, and it's a very good looking phone from behind. On the front, yeah, display's probably the weakest part of this entire phone, but battery life is also a night and day difference. When I'm used to having the best battery life in a phone ever with the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and then I switch down to the iPhone SE, it's like, what, we're at 65% already? The day just began. It's not unbearable, you know, it gets through the day. I've had this as my daily phone for the past 3 days, I guess, so it's not unbearable. It's just noticeably worse than the 11 Pro Max, and the design's definitely more symmetrical from the bottom. You know, the lightning port is centered, the speaker holes and mic holes are more even and symmetrical, so the design is great. I love the look of this phone, specifically when the display is off, because then you get the illusion that you have a Face ID iPhone for a second. But yeah, as soon as that display turns on, I'm like, we're back to those days again, are we? This makes me really wish that the SE Plus doesn't really end up happening. If you want that plus size iPhone, just go with the iPhone 8 Plus, guys. The A11 chip isn't that bad. You still have portrait mode on the back. If you really care about it, you can just twist your phone around this way. Instead of spending $500 on a new phone, just get an Apple Watch and then you can use it as a preview finder if you care about portrait mode selfies. But yeah, after using a plus size iPhone with Face ID and gestures for so long, this is the biggest like iPhone transition I've ever made when comparing two different iPhones. So maybe that's why I'm just overwhelmed with it. And going back to a phone like this, I had no idea how many times I used the ultra wide and telephoto lenses, and now having neither, I'm kind of like, this is kind of the most boring camera I've ever used. I'm sorry if you're offended. I know a bunch of you guys love this phone, and that's completely justified. For a ton of people out there, it makes a whole lot of sense, but I'm still in the camp of, if you have the option to go with an iPhone 10, 10R, 10S, 10S Max, or any of the iPhone 11s, I would say I'd go with any of those before I go with an SE, despite the A13 chip and the years of support. I'm sorry, I just am not about Touch ID. I'm not about the double click to multitask, and maybe it's just not what I'm used to, and maybe I'll be more used to it in a couple weeks. But for those who are testing out the SE now, feel free to let me know your thoughts by hitting me up over on Twitter. Join my Discord. We can bicker more about it there, and bye-bye home button. I don't want you anymore. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.